Warning, this is my opinion. I'm allowed to have my own opinion, and you're allowed to have your own opinion. The main goal of this video is not to change other people's opinions. It is to criticize, inform, and start a conversation. You have your own opinion, and I respect that. I have my own opinion, and you may or may not respect that. If you can't handle the fact that others may not have the same opinion as you, then you might want to leave now. Also, if I am talking about a specific person, please do not witch hunt the people I am talking about. And if you do try to seek those people out, please be civil about it. You cannot believe how much worse things can get if you don't act civil. Anyway, that is the end for this pre-video warning.
Hello, welcome to Rage Reviews, the series in which I review media without pulling any punches. And today's video is going to be on Undertale, specifically the Pacifist route, because if I did both the routes, it would take way too long. So this video will be 2 parts. Also, major spoilers. I mean, duh. So, what category is up first? So, Undertale's story is simple, yet effective. It tells you what happened and why everything is happening, but it leaves enough out to make you want to learn. So, what is the story? Well, a long time ago, 2 races, the humans and the monsters, went at war, and the monsters lost. When they lost, they retreated into the mountain, and the humans sealed them into there using a magic barrier. After an unknown amount of time, at the event, the player, who goes by the name of Frisk, falls into the underground, and this is when the adventure begins. You see, there are multiple ways to play Undertale. However, there are mainly 2 that I will cover: the pacifist/neutral and the genocide route. The reason why I'm pairing up the pacifist and neutral route together is because you can get the neutral ending and get the true pacifist ending without needing to reset. So, let's talk about pacifism. The Ruins is the first area of Undertale. It starts with the player standing on a patch of flowers, which is on a patch of grass. This gives you time to understand how the basic overworld control works, even though the controls were given to you before you even start the game. Anyways, you enter through the door and encounter the first thing you have ever seen besides yourself in the game: a talking flower named Flowey. Flowey is your battle tutorial in a sense. He teaches you how to move in battle. Then Flowey tells you that to hit the friendliness pellets, and then when you get hit, you lose health, and learn that Flowey's evil, which is not cool. A movie by Shane Dawson. But what I really was going to say was that it's genius. Let me explain. This simple betrayal teaches the player that you take damage when getting hit by objects. This is great game design, something that I will cover again and again and over and over and over in this series. But anyways, Flowey gets hit by a flame, and you meet Toriel, the caretaker of the ruins. Both the ruins and Toriel herself are tutorials in a sense. And yeah, haha, Toriel. Very funny and original, Toby. Oh, wait. Anyways, that's saying something. But anyways, after you walk through with Toriel and seeing how she is presented of a minor tutorial which holds your hand, you get taught the spare and kill mechanics. After you either kill or spare the demi, you move on to the next room and head on to your first puzzle. However, before you get to the puzzle, you run into the first real enemy, a frogget. This is to see what path the player wishes to take. In this case, we spare the frogget by letting Toriel scare it away. Nothing interesting happens for a while, so just skip most of it. Anyways, you go through the large tunnel and Toriel runs away to, quote-unquote, test your independence. Then, she gives you a phone so you can contact her and leaves, which makes no sense since there's probably very bad reception here, but whatever. After she leaves, you leave as well to go through the ruins. After a couple of puzzles in the rooms, you meet your first boss, or rather mini-boss, named Napstablook. Even though it feels more like a mini-boss, though, like I said earlier. Now, I'm not going to talk about Napstablook just yet, because there will be a section later where I only talk about the bosses, and specifically how to beat them. But anyways, after we spare Napstablook, because we're covering the pacifist route here, we go onto another room. Now, I'm skipping the bake sale so I can cover the Muffet fight later, but that's for another section. Anyways, you get to a room with 2 faggots. One of them talks about how names turn yellow and when the monster can be spared. And then the other one says maybe you'll have to spare someone even when their name isn't yellow. Which is supposed to be a hint on how to defeat Toriel. However, the game doesn't tell you they have to spare 50 million times. Like, holy crap, game. You could at least give the player a better hint. Like, please, you could have said anything. Like, anything. And it would probably worked better. So after the part, there really isn't anything interesting besides the Toriel boss fight, which, like I said, I'll cover later. So let's move on to the second area of the game. When you leave the ruins, you enter a path full of snow with trees on both sides. You walk through the snowy path and realize they're being followed by someone or something. Not to mention the music, which changes every so often. This causes fear or stress in the player, making them think that what something is to kill them, like Toriel warned them. When you reach this weird-looking gate thing, the player stops to see this dark figure approaching them. The shadowy figure stops behind the player and talks to them, asks to shake their hand, and when the player shakes their hand, the shadow figure is revealed to be Sans. After a short talk with Sans, you hide behind a conveniently shaped lamp and meet Sans' brother, Papyrus. After learning that Papyrus needs to hunt humans to join the Royal Guard, he leaves to another room. After that, you talk with Sans for a bit, and he goes the opposite way, just to appear to the rooms later, because teleportation. Anyways, you moved on to the next room to be introduced to the box. The box stores items similar to how they say, similar to, let's say, the PC, which stores Pokemon, the Pokemon games. When you come across another box of items, you put the old one magically away, and they're still there next time you meet another box. But let's move on. So, after that room, we continue on with the Papyrus and Sans. Papyrus meets you and declares that he will set up traps and puzzles to stop you. After this, you run into Doggo. When you meet Doggo, you get into a fight. This fight teaches the player about how blue attacks work. I'll cover this more in boss section though. So, just wait for when we get there. After you fight Doggo, you go into another room where you can go right up or up. If you go up, you can get an item called a snowy piece. This is sort of a side quest where you have to bring the item to the surface, which was your main goal anyways. If you go right, you lead to the invisible electricity maze, which is a puzzle that you easily solve due to Papyrus hilariously stupid. After this, there's a crossword puzzle that is entirely skippable, and 2 is solvable. I know because someone on Discord server I'm on has solved it and provides an image. If I can get the image back, I'll put it up on screen. After this, you run into the spaghetti trap, which isn't a real trap. After this, you encounter the lesser dog character, which is hilarious. After that, you run into Dogami and Doggeressa, which teach the player how to handle blue attacks that are mixed with white attacks. But they only have 2 attacks, one of which is white and blue, and so the player might not even encounter it. Who knows? After this boss, you run into the first real puzzle. This puzzle is simple. You step on the blue X's to turn them on into red circles. After that, you can press the button to turn them into green circles. Then, the puzzle is solved. This puzzle is very easy, but is used to introduce a concept for a much harder puzzle later. After that, you run into the same puzzle, but in the shape of Papyrus's face. After you solve that puzzle, you run into the random color puzzle. The puzzle is always scheduled to be 100% winnable. However, if you keep asking Papyrus for instructions, he leaves and you don't have to deal with the puzzle, even though that it's a scripted event and all. After this, you run into the ice version of the blue X's and red circles puzzle. If you solve it, you can move on. After that, you run into the greater dog battle, which is also mixes blue attacks with white attacks. After this, you run into a cutscene with the gauntlet of deadly terror. After the cutscene is over, you get to enter Snowden and do the Papyrus fight. After this, you go on a hilarious quote-unquote date with Papyrus that marks the end of Snowden. So, what is next? The first room in Waterfall is, well, a save point. In this room, you have the chance to go on to the first Sans quote-unquote date, which is just him asking about a talking flower. You, as the player, think he is talking about Flowey. However, instead, he talks about the echo flowers, which were in the original room, and the day ends. After that, you move on to the next room. In that room, there is a patch of grass-like stuff. Halfway through the grass, the screen moves up to a cliff to see someone in a suit of armor. Then, Papyrus appears to talk to them. You learn that this person is Undyne. After the talk, you can move forward, and when you do, Undyne realizes you are there and is about to aim her spear and take your soul. However, after looking back and forth, she puts her spear away, walks backwards, and disappears. After that room, you run into 3 puzzles. One is just rocks falling down a waterfall. The second is a bridge made out of flowers that will only be made if the flowers are in a straight line. Then the second one is the same as the previous mentioned one, but it's just a little more complicated. After this, Papyrus asks a question about what you are wearing. After this, you can encounter Undyne, who throws spears at you. After you run into a patch of grass, Undyne herself enters the grass and seemingly grabs you, but instead it's actually Scraggy, or known as Monster Kid in the game. After that, she puts him back in the grass and walks away. After that, there is a lot of walking and walking. After the walking, you meet Undyne again. This time, she shoves spears through a bridge that you are standing on. After this, you reach a dead end, and you turn around to see Undyne. She destroys the half of the bridge that you are on, and when you fall, you get to some sort of flashback that actually isn't a flashback, but it's also a flashback. Complicated, huh? Anyways, then you wake up. After you wake up, you walk around to find yourself in a garbage dump. When you reach the exit, a dummy comes to life and fights you. However, we'll be talking about that later. You reach an area with multiple houses, blah blah blah, now it's the book date, blah blah. After that, you encounter a room where mushrooms light up a path, and possibly find a strange place called Temi Village, the only place where you can sell your items. Anyways, after that, you find a room where the area grows darker unless you interact with lanterns, and you find a dead end with 1 echo flower. When you interact with the echo flower, it says, "Behind you!" and you turn around to see Undyne. Undyne is about to start a battle with you when Monster Kid jumps out and congratulates you on getting the front row to see Undyne's fight. After being confused, Undyne drags Monster Kid away to probably send him back to his parents. When you head left, you discover a path and fight a bridge. This is where you meet Monster Kid again. Have a talk with him, and then he leaves. Except he nearly falls off the bridge, and he somehow hangs on the bridge, despite the fact that he doesn't even have any arms. You pick it back up, and after he defends you, Undyne leaves, and Monster Kid heads back to his parents. When you head to the next room, you meet Undyne. However, this time she's unmasked, and you find out she's a fish lady. Yep, and she decides to go, and she... Sorry, my bad. She decides, instead of giving you an exposition dump, she fights you. This fight has a lot of good game design that will be mentioned in the next part later, in this part as well. After you run away from her multiple times, you make it to Hotland. She collapses because of the heat, and you pour some water on her. After this, she walks away, and you can head to her house to have the Undyne quote-unquote date. Now, when time ends, you get to know Undyne's backstory, then you get the spaghetti lesson from hell. It's a very funny moment. After you quote-unquote cook the spaghetti, you get in a fight with Undyne. In the fight, you only do 1 damage, and when Undyne realizes that even with all of your might, you can't muster up the will to hurt her, she no longer wants to fight you and become friends. After that, you leave Undyne's house, which is on fire, by the way, and she tells you that if you need her, she will be at Papyrus' house. So, you can call him if you want. So, what's next? Man, that's so creative for a place that's hot and full of lava, isn't it? Anyways, though, so the first thing you see in Hotland is 2 guards and a save point. If you head down, you see the river person. They're not important for this part, so let's go. So, you enter the lab and you run into Alphys. She nerds out for a bit and explains the situation with the robot she made named Metaton. Then, Metaton comes through the wall like the Kool-Aid Man. Oh yeah! and then you get a quiz show. If you answer a question incorrect, then you get damage. If not, you go into the next question. Mettaton discovers that Alphys is helping you and decides to ask the question, who does Alphys have a crush on? All the answers are technically correct, but the real correct answer is Undyne. Anyways, after that, Alphys upgrades your phone. This allows you to use the boxes anywhere. It also adds devices that will be convenient for later. After this, you move to these conveyor belts, which really just don't do anything other than to make you move faster. They only really matter for a quote-unquote puzzle that comes much later. After that, you run into some air vents that will blow you over gaps. This will also be used for a puzzle later, but unlike the last one, it is a million times more fun and frustrating. Infuriating. Sorry. Then after that, you run into a room with orange and blue lasers. This is the player about how orange attacks work. Instead of staying still like the blue attacks, you do the exact opposite, which is moving around when they are hitting you. And if you do not do that, then you get hurt. And if you do not get that, then what they will do is if you like are standing still when you hit an orange later in the overworld, then you get into an encounter battle, which is just dodging orange and blue lines. So it basically makes it so that one, you learn in the overworld, and if you forget that, you do it in a battle, and it makes more sense that way as well. After that, you run into a shooting puzzle where you shoot a white heart-looking thing with a yellow heart-looking thing by moving around blocks. This may or may not be foreshadowing a game mechanic later. After that, you complete the 2 shooting blocks because, yes, there was another one. And you run into some air vents, which shoot you into a different room that you cannot leave. Then you encounter Mettaton in the first Mettaton minigame. In it, you collect the cooking ingredients and give them to Mettaton. Then Mettaton will try and kill you with a chainsaw, but Alphys convinces Mettaton to use a vegan substitute. This will cause you to do a minigame where you have to fly up to the top of an extremely tall counter. Then, when you get to the top, you get to leave. The next thing you should encounter is an elevator that will take you to the 2nd floor. After that is a shop where Sans sells hot dogs, and then the hardest puzzle in the entire game, in my opinion, of course. This puzzle is a vent puzzle, but when you press the buttons, the direction of the vent will change. This puzzle is annoying, so let's move on. After this, you encounter 2 royal guards, the same ones from before. However, I count them as bosses, so let's move on. After that, you encounter the 2nd Mettaton minigame. This time, you have to report on an item. After you pick the item, it is revealed that everything is a bomb. And then you enter the real minigame, which is defusing all the bombs. Don't worry, it is way easier than it sounds. After you disable the bombs, you go up a floor and encounter a giant spider who is running a shop. Don't worry, guys, I'll talk about that her later, because guess what? She's a boss. After you encounter a room with lots of air vents, these vents will be used to go to harder versions of the Yellow Heart shooting game that were mentioned previously. After you solve each puzzle, you go on an encounter your 2nd mini-boss, Muffet the giant spider from earlier. However, we'll skip her, as quickly as mentioned, because, well, she's a boss. As I said earlier, I don't know why I repeated that. After that, you run into the 3rd Mettaton minigame, luckily the last one. In this one, Mettaton sings some sort of opera or musical, then you fall through the floor, and you have to go through the puzzle from Snowdom. Except now the colors aren't just pink and red, whether if you make it through or not. However, you have to fight Mettaton. In this fight, Mettaton is considered indestructible. However, Alphys tells you to use the yellow button on your phone, and now your phone is upside down and yellow, like in those puzzles from earlier. Now, Mettaton leaves, and you may proceed to the next room. In this room, you see Sans in front of Mettaton's resort. You go on the final Sans date and learn about why he didn't kill you and when he saw you. After that, you proceed to... So, the core is a much smaller area than Hotland, but dang, is it amazing. However, let's start from the beginning. When you approach the core, you see figures entering it. And when you enter, you start encountering enemies, some of which are harder versions from the enemies in the ruins, and others are brand new. After this, you run into a puzzle where the lasers turn on and off again, and you must stop periodically to make sure you don't get hit. Then, you walk over a bridge, which is over darkness. After every couple steps, enemies appear and attack you. When you cross the bridge, there is a button that gets rid of an electric gate that was blocking the area out of the core. When you enter the previously blocked room, you see a bridge over a bright area of the core, and just like the last bridge, when you take a couple of steps, you run into monsters. Then, after that, you see a mysterious door. When you enter the room, you run into Mettaton. This is the main boss of the core and Hotland, technically. Like I said, for all of the other bosses, we'll cover them later. Anyways, after the battle, Alphys confesses that you have to kill Asgore in order to leave the underground, which is something that was never told to you before. After this, I'm pretty sure you can participate in Alpha State, however, I will do that later. Anyways, after you leave the core, you enter an elevator to go to... So, this area has no real monsters in them. Instead, this area is used as an exposition dump. Basically, you're told that the human named Kara, or whoever you named it as in the beginning of the game, fell into the underground, and the son of the king, Asgore, and Queen Toriel found them and brought them home. The son's name was Asriel, and the two became friends. After a while, Kara got sick, and when she died, Asriel absorbed her soul and took her body to the surface to the village she lived at. The humans thought he killed her and attacked him, and he went back to the underground and died. After this, Asgore went on a war with humanity, and every human who fell into the underground after that must die. When 7 souls are gathered, Asgore will destroy the barrier and free the monsters. After the exposition dump, you enter King Asgore's castle. You see Asgore watering flowers, and when he sees you, he says some things, and he brings you to the barrier. There, you fight him, and when we talk about that later. After you kill or spare Asgore, because it doesn't matter for this battle, Flowey will enter. If you spared Asgore, he will kill him, and if you killed Asgore, he will comment on you killing him. After Asgore dies, Flowey absorbs the 6 other human souls, and your game crashes. When you enter the game, you see a giant version of Flowey's head. Then after the conversation and some more questions, you have a unique boss fight. However, that boss fight is for later, so let's move on. After the fight, you get a call from Sans about some stuff, and then you get to talk to Flowey. Flowey gives you your save file back, and you enter the game at the save point that leads to Asgore's fight. This time, you'll get a call from Undyne asking you to deliver a letter from her. When you get to Snowdin, you take the letter and give it to Alphys. Alphys thinks you made the letter for her, and so you two go on a date at the garbage dump. After some talking, Alphys tells you that she likes Undyne, which you already knew, and so you pretend to be Undyne so Alphys can try to practice before she goes on a real date with Undyne. However, Undyne discovers you guys. Alphys has a conversation with you guys. Some jogging happens. Pacifist gives you a call about Alphys going to the lab and some other stuff. So you go to the lab, and now the quote-unquote bathroom door opens. However, when you go into the elevator, when you enter, there's an elevator that takes you to... So, the elevator breaks and you have to reactivate the generator in order to leave. However, the generator door is locked and you will have to need to recover a blue, green, red, and yellow key, each of which is hidden somewhere throughout the lab. To make this fast, I will tell you the locations. Under the bed sheets, in the sink, in the room after the mirror room, and in the tub. However, throughout exploring this area, you'll run into the amalgamations of monsters. However, throughout exploring this area, you will run into the amalgamations of monsters that were experimented on by Dr. Alphys. You see, they were dying, so Alphys used determination to revive them. However, the determination made them melt together, and now they look like that. After you reactivate the generator, the amalgamates come in to seemingly attack you. However, Alphys comes in and tells the amalgamates their food is ready, and they leave. Alphys talks to you about why she didn't want to let the amalgamates go back to their families, and eventually she tells the amalgamates that it's time to go home. After that, you go into the elevator and you hear some voice from the water ball flashback talk to you directly, thinking that you are Kara. The elevator goes back to the capital, and the vines block the elevator after you exit it. And now it's finally time to talk about... So you go to fight Asgore, except now Toriel steps in to stop the battle. Then everyone else comes in and everything is happy and stuff. Then Flowey appears and steals everyone's souls. This causes them to turn back into Asriel Dreamer, and you have a final battle of the Pacifist route, but I will talk about that very soon. Anyways, after you beat him, Asriel gives you all the monsters their souls back, and Asriel leaves, and then you and the monsters leave the underground and enjoy the surface together. And that is the story and gameplay of Undertale. So, you probably already know what's next, right? Honestly, in my opinion, the bosses in the Pacifist and Neutral route are a bit lackluster. They're not boring, far from it, honestly, but they're just not that challenging. And yeah, while fights like Papyrus and Muffet, and maybe even Metaton, are actually pretty hard at certain spots, they're not challenging enough for me to be fully interested. But that's off topic. In this area, we'll be talking about bosses in a general sense and what gimmick of each boss is. So first up is Napstablook. His main shtick is crying either just rain-like tears or tears that climb up walls and fall back down again when they reach the top. Just cheering him up a bit and everything will be fine. Next up, Toriel, or Goat Mom, whichever you prefer. Anyways, her attacks are simple. She throws fire at certain areas, and some are placed in the line and go towards your heart. Well, while others move toward you, moving side to side. Just spread Toriel like 50 million times, and you should be good. After that is Doggo. It is simple. Stand still for the first attack, pet him, stand still again, and then spare him again. Or not spare him again, just spare him. For Dogami and Doggeressa, you have to dodge a mixture of blue and white attacks, as well as an axe attack. Just roll in the dirt and ask to be smelled again. After judges, spare them and walk away. After that is Greater Dog. His attacks include a spear that changes between blue and white, and that's all I remember when writing the script. Anyways, beckon him and pet him a lot. After a while, I think you need to play with him and then pet him some more. But after that, spare him. Then you encounter Snowdin's main boss, Papyrus. Just survive his onslaught of attacks and spare him after his really cool regular attack. For the dummy, just make the mini dummies magic hit him. He will fire the mini dummies and replace them with robot dummies. The robot dummies will shoot magic missiles, which you also use to attack the dummy. Up to the hoop, he throws a knife at you, Napstablook cries some more, and the battle's over. Then it's the main boss of Waterfall, Undyne. In the battle, you need to get through her green attacks until she turns you red again. When you turn red, want to run away from her. Rinse and repeat until you cross the bridge into Hotland. Use the water cooler and pour the water on Undyne, and you win. For Royal Guard 1 and 2, you do some simple stuff. Clean number 2's armor so he gets hot. He takes his armor off. Number 1 gets nervous. Tell number 1 to be true to his feelings. Listen to the conversation and spare. For Muffet, just dodge her onslaught of attacks until the little spider comes with a telegram. Listen to Muffet's apology and spare. For Metaton's fight, do burn until Alphys calls, and then listen to what she says. After that, convince Metaton to turn around and flip his switch. Then Metaton turns to Metaton X, or EX, however you want to pronounce it. Anyways, just go to the rating of 10,000, and the battle's over. For Asgore, for once, you get to attack, so fight him until he's close to death. Either spare or kill him. It doesn't matter. Wait until Flowey enters and watch him absorb the soul. Then let your game crash. Then open the game again. Flowey will be here, but for some reason he has a big head. Anyways, talk to him for a bit and watch in horror as the tiny flower you once knew became... Yep, this is Omega Flowey, or Flowey X, or Photoshop Flowey, whatever you want to call it. Just survive its attacks until the first soul minigame appears. Dodge the soul attacks and press react. Repeat 5 more times, and then you get to heal. And Flowey defense goes to 0. Then, when the fight button appears, press the fight button until Flowey dies. However, he doesn't die, and instead it goes back to the beginning of the fight by using save states, because apparently Flowey knows how to use an emulator. Anyways, watch the cutscene and then spare Flowey and win. Flower gives you back your save file, so you do the stuff that was previously mentioned. Then go against the amalgamates, which I do not consider mini bosses or bosses, so they will not be mentioned. If you want to know more, wait until I release the Rage Plays and Let's Play series, but for games on Rage Review. Hashtag shameless plug. Anyways, go back to Asgore's castle, watch your friends come together, then watch as Flowey takes all their souls and becomes Asriel Dreamer. This is the final boss of Undertale's Pacifist rap, and oh boy, is it easy. You see, you can't truly die in the fight, so really just get through Asriel's attacks until the phase where you have to save your friends by doing act commands. After you save them, you have to save Asriel and then beat him, and then you beat him. Simple as that. Now that we got through the bosses, let's go to the final parts. So, my first problem with Undertale is the hint on how to spare Toriel. You see, many people accidentally killed Toriel on their first playthrough because they didn't know you could spare her. So what would I change? Well, I would make it so that the frogget who says, maybe you will have to spare someone even if their name isn't yellow, and have it say, if a monster won't spare you, keep sparing them, even when their name isn't yellow. If you see, it tells you what to do without directly saying that you have to do a tutorial. It just says if a monster won't spare you. And, well, by process of elimination, the player should get the hint. After that, I would make it so the Pacifist special attack introduced mechanics in the Sands battle so that the player would have a chance, because in the Sands battle is one of the very few places with bad game design. However, I will talk about that in part 2. So, what would I do? I would make his special attacks be bones that do not have invincibility frames, and I would also introduce Gaster Blasters, and the ability to jump onto platforms in the battle similar to the ones attacked in Sands battle, and also include things like the telepathy attacks and the other stuff that I didn't mention. The only difference is that unlike the Sands fight, that'd probably be pretty easy, and they would just be there to introduce a concept. And the final bit would be to make it so that you can indeed die in the Asriel battle. Now, before any Undertale fans say, but you come back to life after death because you're determined, blah, blah, blah. But you see, you've been doing that the whole game. It's called save points. So, what I would do is make some of Asriel's attacks possible to dodge so that the player does not die. And when the player does die, have their game crash, and when the battle's open, and when open the game again, the boss fight starts over again or at a checkpoint similar to the Omega Fly fight. Anyways, besides that, there was nothing else I would change to Undertale. So, should you get Undertale for just the Pacifist rap? Absolutely. Despite some of the things I said about it, I personally still think it is an amazing game. I would say it is in my top 10 best games of all time, probably number 2 behind the game that we're doing next time. But who knows, that might change during the Genocide route. Yeah. But that is about it. And before I drop the bomb on what the next review is, let me warn you that I have not made the script for part 2 yet. So I have to make it, which is why part 2 will not be the next Rage review. Instead, it will be the game that already has a script for it. But anyways, next time on Rage Review.